humidity here is even greater than what we experience in Arkansas, and that makes it tough enough with heat stress issues. Let's talk about anabolic steroids. We have been aware that some athletes do abuse anabolic steroids. We know that it's not a good idea. But anabolic steroids do not increase muscle mass without tremendous physical exercise in order to accomplish that. The only place we would expect to have a response in a chicken would be in the breast muscle, which is the most expensive part of the bird. The breast muscle's function is to power the wings for flight. Chickens have not flown, in case you haven't noticed, for thousands of years. There is no way that that muscle will respond positively to anabolic steroids. So, hopefully, I've given you a couple of ideas that you can use to help educate people and get the word out that the performance that we've seen and your ability to provide low-cost, high-quality protein comes from genetic selection, advances in nutrition, which in many cases is better than human nutrition, and that with fabulous management, good environment, good quality feed, we don't need any help. The evolution of the modern broiler from the original jungle fowl has taken about 5,000 years. But one of the greatest development in meat birds has taken place in the last 2 centuries with massive advances in the last 50 years. These have been closely related to advances in the sciences of genetics and nutrition. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or have a discussion later on. Thank you very much, and thank you for asking me to attend.
Oh, I think we should give Dr. Christensen another round of applause. You know, I was actually born on a chicken farm. I still live on a chicken farm. So, in fact, our very early production in my family, we shared quarters with the chickens because we couldn't afford a dwelling house at that time. And so I often think I know everything about the poultry industry, but you have certainly given us a lot of information here, and it was very palatable. The way you presented the information. So I want to thank you very much. You started your presentation and you said that chicken was originally grown for feathers. I'm sure you would have researched Trinidad and Tobago and the region when you come here. And, despite the claims by New Orleans, Carnival in Trinidad and Tobago is really the greatest festival in the world. And chicken feathers still form a great part of the costumes and that sort of thing. So it's still important in this part of the world. The other thing is you had put up a slide with chicken from 50 years ago and one from nowadays. And I thought to myself, if we were in the fashion industry, that 1950 chicken would have been a supermodel. And as is customary, I left some of our local people to recognize last, and I see Dr. Saeed Rahman here from the Ministry of Health. With all the zoonoses, Professor Ura would tell us about One Health and so on. It's important that veterinary public health be part of all the things we do, and Dr. Rahman is the director. And of course, our very own Mr. Robin Phillips, who is the president of the Poultry Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And I think I covered everybody, but just in case I didn't, it's not personal. So, ladies and gentlemen, to close this session and to bring up, are there any questions?
Yeah, I had, Karen, I know one of the things that, first of all, I thought the presentation was excellent.
I'm sorry, for those of you who may not heard the question, discussing capons, and that perhaps the hormone issue came about with the popularity of capons. That didn't come across on anything in my research, but if anybody has any information about that, that's something we probably need to explore. Now, capon would be the opposite of hormone, where it's similar to castrating bulls, so it would be the same as the steer. So in that case, it's a lack of hormone, which increases fat deposition and decreases the amount of lean meat.
Done in those days, capons.
They put a pellet.
Yeah, that's true. They probably did put a pellet in to chemically castrate.
Testicular growth.
Yeah, yeah. So that's probably a good point, and I will do some research on that and include that, and that may be partially where that has come from.
Whole thought of hormones came about.
I appreciate that. And then later I know it was done surgically, but that you may be very correct in that, and if so, I appreciate that comment, and I will pursue that. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Karen, there's
Yes, sir.
another question.
You mentioned in the USA currently 1.7 under 2% of persons are involved in food production.
Yes, sir.
Does that include crops, or that's just animals?
No, that's all of agriculture.
You're serious?
I'm serious. That is all of agriculture. So that graph really showed, yeah, and so what's happening is we're seeing farms getting larger, having to become more efficient because of the urbanization of the United States and the lack of interest in farming and agriculture. And just as a side note, and I don't want to take up too much time, but not only issues like hormones, but other issues like animal welfare are coming to the forefront because there is a huge disconnect between people and their food. So I would really suggest to all of you to get ahead of these types of issues by trying to understand ways where you can encourage people to know you and to know what you do. And I'd say invite them in, but I certainly understand the issues with biosecurity. But think of ways that you can incorporate people in, either use videos or we all need to, because we're losing the fight, and especially with the young people. We need to introduce the idea of farming and food to the young people so that they have a good understanding of where their food comes from. I appreciated the remarks this morning about food solidarity and having enough food producing, because I think that's important for every nation. But I think with that goes the idea that your people have to understand that as well, because otherwise we lose our way and it creates other problems. Now in Fayetteville, Arkansas, the biggest discussion is how many backyard chickens can people have? And I will tell you that the largest manufacturer of chicken diapers, so you can have chickens in your house, is in Hot Springs, Arkansas. So if anybody's interested, I would be happy to bring you some on my next visit. So we really are losing our way, and with the increase now in going back to backyard flocks, the threat from diseases being introduced into our national flocks is a very serious problem, very serious problem. And when they condemn the industry for welfare issues, but I asked them, how many backyard birds do you have? And she said, well, I had 10 until the coyotes ate half of them. And I said, and where's the welfare there? So.
How much of the drop in the livestock force, the size of the livestock force, is related to the availability of veterinary services? There is this notion that you, as a veterinarian, you make more money with small animals rather than
It's
large
not a
animals.
notion, it's true. And I don't know, do we have time? Is my okay? Do I need to? Okay, from speaking from personal experience, I took a slide out of here that maybe I should have left in. You would have enjoyed seeing, but I'm going to take the long road to your question. In 1983, when I worked for H&N, Dr. Havenstein, who did the work, also, we closed up a herd of Hereford cattle on the primary breeder farm, and when he wasn't breeding chickens, he was planning matings with Simmental semen to breed that herd up to a purebred Simmental herd. I bought Simmental cattle from H&N in 1985, and in 2000 we saw that those cattle were too big and too yellow, and so they in the last few years, we've brought those cattle down, moderated the size, and changed the color from yellow to black. So amazing things can happen. So I do have registered cattle at home, and I have a problem. We had a veterinarian leave the service just the other day, left us without veterinary care. I'm not sure it's because of the lack of farming, but I think it's the lack of people that are willing to work large animals after hours. They don't want to work from 5 at night till 5 in the morning for emergency calls. So they know they can make more money spaying dogs and cats and still work 8 to 5, and I think is a huge problem. Not so much for poultry, but because the way we handle it, but certainly for other large animals, it's huge. Another question?
Yes. Has the chicken genome been sequenced as yet? And if so, can we expect more improvements in genetics?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, I could have spent like 3 or 4 days talking about this, so I apologize for any omissions, and I do appreciate your comments on capons, and I will work on it. Yes, in about 2004, 2005, the genome has been completely identified. And so we have seen tremendous changes. And it's not so much that we want to monkey with the genome and do things, but what we can do now is we can look at individual birds and understand their performance based on their genome and where those changes in their genome exist. And so then we can select birds based on individual or a family of genes that may contribute to feed efficiency or egg production or breast meat deposition. So yes, it's really been an important part of the improvement. Yes. Any other questions? I will certainly be here over the next couple of days, and I'd be happy to discuss with any of you. I'm very interested in how your business here differs from business in the States. And again, I appreciate the offer to come and speak with you today. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you again, Karen, for answering those questions. Robert, you raised an interesting thing there about capons. 30 years ago, so when I had the first set of feather-sexable chicks at the hatchery, I separated maybe 2 dozens of them, and I decided I would turn the hens into Cornish game hens and the cockerels into capons, and but I wasn't successful castrating them myself. I got a veterinarian to help me, but no, and that's why I know a little bit about it. I looked at the pellet implant which they put in behind the neck, and you are correct. It was referred to as hormones, probably wrongfully so, because as you said, but it was chemical castration. Yeah, you don't see capons a lot anymore, though. Maybe a few select restaurants that do have it. It is very tender and juicy, though, very much like a chicken breast with neutral marinade. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we're going to close this session. I'm going to invite, well, let me recognize, I invited Mr. Robert Levy to do the prayer, but I think most of you would know, but Robert, are you Chairman Emeritus, Jamaica Broilers, or are you still the chairman?
Sure.
And more importantly, he was the second chairman of the Caribbean Poultry Association. I actually was there at that one of the early meetings, and I know you may have been the second chairman, but probably the brainchild behind this all-important institution that in the face of WTO and everything else, the Caribbean Poultry Association has really sought to stabilize what has remained the most important agricultural industry in the region. So I'm going to invite Dr. Desmond and I think I saw Peter De Freitas here. Hello, Peter. Peter is also a former president of the Caribbean Poultry Association. Dr. Desmond Ali, who in part has been responsible for organizing this 50-year celebration. I've known Desmond for a long time. He's done work with us at the Livestock and Livestock Products Board for almost 20 years in the area of HACCP. Desmond is a microbiologist and has Worked in the food industry almost all of his life in the area of research and so on. And he's currently the executive director of the Caribbean Poultry Association. So I'm going to invite, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Desmond Ali to do the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Let me first of all thank the government of Trinidad and Tobago through the Ministry of Food Production and the Livestock and Livestock Products Board, because without their assistance and contribution and help, we would not have been able to put on this technical symposium. So, Madam Deputy Permanent Secretary, we thank you for coming here this morning and sharing your words with us. We would like you to, when you go back to your office, that you express our gratitude and thanks to Minister Senator Devon Maraj. We regretted that he wasn't able to come. I know I spoke with him 2 days ago, and he said to me that they were having a parliamentary meeting. I said, but Minister, the Parliament is right across the road, man. You could just run across and come and spend 5 minutes with us. He said, well, I'll try, but I can't promise you. I know they're meeting right there. And the other ministers as well who we invited, they're all having this caucus. And perhaps I chose a wrong time to have the meeting, because the budget is normally given the first Monday of September. And I thought, well, if I give them 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I'll have enough time. But the budget debate has not yet completed, and I think it's going to be completed today or tomorrow. So, Mrs. Hannibal Phillips, please extend our gratitude to the Minister for his support and the support of the industry all through the time that he has been Minister. I want to thank Robert Levy. Robert, you've excelled as usual, you always do. Thank you for giving the prayer this morning. And we are grateful that you're here with us to share your experience with us at this meeting. We've had a number of co-hosts who have worked with me at the Caribbean Poultry Association putting together this meeting. I want to recognize, of course, the Ministry of Food Production through the Livestock and Livestock Products Board, and also through their communications department. Tamara isn't here. She was here a little while ago, and Tamara was very helpful in putting together this room, the decorations, and all of that. So I really want to thank the Ministry of Food Production for their assistance, and especially the Livestock and Livestock Products Board. And I can tell you that I could not have got all of this together were it not for the staff of the Livestock and Livestock Products Board, headed by Mary and Mira, who helped me to put this thing together. Also, the Poultry Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Robin is here. Robin is the president of that association. He's also the honorary secretary of the Caribbean Poultry Association. And Robin worked very closely with me in putting this thing together. In fact, I must tell you that when Robin and I discussed this meeting, I think it was just after Carnival in February, he said, you know, Desmond, we need to get somebody to talk about this issue of hormones and talk about how the modern broiler evolved over time. So that the lecture that Karen gave really came out of that discussion that Robin and I had. And Robin is the one who sowed the seed of the idea in me. And that's the reason that we've got Karen here to talk about the evolution of the modern broiler and the role or non-role of hormones and steroids in our industry. I also want to thank Robert, Thomas, and Frad from the United States Soybean Export Council, because they are our co-hosts in this meeting, and they were extremely helpful in helping us to get the speakers from the US and helping us to fund the program. We've had a number of co-sponsors. Arawak, Robin is here from Arawak Limited, Neutrina, and I recognize Ronnie Mohammed, past president of the Caribbean Poultry Association. Master Mix Trinidad, and Jeff Rostein is here. Prestige Holdings were one of our big sponsors. Unfortunately, Charles Pashley, who is the CEO of Prestige Holdings, could not be here. Charles, I was in his office with Robin last week, and he was preparing a good lecture, actually. And Charles became ill earlier this week with a virus attack, and he's flat out in bed, and he couldn't make it. But I do want to recognize and appreciate the role that Prestige played in us putting together this meeting. I want also to thank the Warnerville Grain Mills Group. They're also one of our co-sponsors. Griffith Laboratories. when I mentioned this to Mike Jones, who is the head of Griffiths in the Caribbean, Mike jumped at the idea and just, of course, husband will be a co-sponsor. And Mike, I want to thank you really very much for extending your hands to us and also for getting speakers to work with us. I want also to recognize a company called Grains and Produce SA,